I was calling out his name, trying to find him. I was getting desperate at this point and hoping I would find him. And I just had this gut feeling that something was wrong. And I had turned and walked down the driveway, and I was standing right as the driveway dips, and Scott calls me.
On your phone?
On my phone. And I'm looking over the pond and kind of just standing there at the fence, and he goes, Amanda, like something to the tune of like, Daddy's in this burn pile. Like, I know what I've seen. I've been in Iraq. I know what burned bodies looked like. And I'm just sitting there on the phone going, what are you talking about?
On July 5th, 2018, something unthinkable was discovered behind the quiet home of Gary and Melody Farris. In a burn pile on the property, among ash and debris, human bones were found. It was their adult son, Scott, who made the discovery, and he immediately called 911. He feared they belonged to his father, Gary, as he had gone missing 2 days prior after being last seen by his wife, Melody, on the evening of July 3rd, 2018. She said he came into the house and asked if she was making dinner. She responded that there was plenty of food in the refrigerator and suggested he get something himself. Those were the last words they ever spoke to each other. Gary then headed downstairs to his bedroom in the basement, where he slept alone because of his sleep apnea. His son, Scott, said the last time he saw his dad was at lunch that day, before he left to go hang out with friends. He said when he showed back up at 11:30 p.m., he noticed a burn pile glowing in the distance. He said he found it odd but didn't investigate at the time. The next day, on July 4th, Gary was nowhere to be found. While Melody found it strange, she didn't find the need to raise the alarm. Then on July 5th, Gary's grandkids came by because they wanted him to take them for a ride on the RTV, but once again, nobody could find Gary. That's when Scott checked the burn pile and discovered the bones. Forensic teams spent hours sifting through the ashes that night. At first, nobody was sure what really happened and theorized that Gary had a medical emergency, had fallen into the fire, and died. However, all that changed when they found a bullet lodged in one of the ribs. It was now clear to investigators that Gary had been shot, killed, and burned right there on his own property. Gary was born on June 27, 1960, in Tuscumbia, Alabama, and went by the nickname Big Daddy. By the age of 58, Gary had built a successful career as a prominent Atlanta attorney, founding the Atlanta office of Burr and Foreman in 1995. While Gary was known for being outspoken and a bit controlling, he was the glue that held the family together. He and his wife, Melody, had been married for 38 years and had raised 4 kids together on their 10-acre farm in Cherokee County, Georgia. The property consisted of a barn, lots of farm equipment, and a burn pile out back for yard debris. Their son, Scott, who had served in the Army, lived in an apartment above the barn and took care of most of the day-to-day work on the farm. From the outside looking in, it seemed like a pretty stable, close-knit family. But all that changed the day he was found murdered and disposed of in the burn pile. Upon searching Gary and Melody's home, they found blood on the kitchen floor, on the stairs, and down in the basement. Tests confirmed it belonged to Gary, and it appeared someone had tried to clean it up. They also found a .38 caliber bullet on the basement floor, the same kind used to murder him. Investigators believed whatever happened started upstairs and then moved down into the basement. When investigators dug into the family dynamics, they learned some interesting things. Melody told them that Gary and Scott had a rocky relationship that sometimes got physical. Scott, on the other hand, pointed investigators toward Melody, leading to a he said, she said. As investigators were looking for evidence to tie either one to the crime, they discovered something that caught their attention in Melody's purse. It was a credit card that belonged to a man named Rusty Barton, along with some birth control. Believing she was involved in an affair, they confronted her about it, but she denied the allegation. Rusty was a traveling farm equipment salesman, and investigators zeroed in on the affair as a possible motive. They just needed to prove it. Eventually, they discovered a burner phone that Melody had been using to contact Rusty, and there was enough evidence on the phone to prove the extramarital affair. Even more damning was the location data that proved she had been on the property during the time the body was being burned, which contradicted what she told her son, Scott, on July 4th, that she was, and I quote, going to the lake. There was also a text discovered on that phone from Melody that read, and I quote, "I hope he dies alone and a gruesome death." The day before Gary's body was discovered, Melody spent $450 at Walmart on cleaning supplies and wine using Gary's credit card. Interestingly, he had warned his children to keep the card away from her. Then there was the whopping $2 million life insurance policy and the ongoing argument over Gary giving his adult children money instead of giving it to Melody. However, the most crucial evidence was the DNA found on the Kubota tractor. Gary's DNA was found on the tractor's hydraulic pump, shift lever, and left footstep, and Melody's DNA was found on the tractor's gear shifter. Investigators alleged that she used the tractor to transport Gary's body. Following an 11-month investigation, on June 18, 2019, Melody was arrested in Tullahoma, Tennessee. Throughout the trial, which finally started in October 2024, she continued to blame her own son, Scott, saying he was the one with the temper and the opportunity to commit the crime. Their excuse for the DNA evidence was that because Melody used the farm equipment regularly, it was natural for her DNA to be on it. They also emphasized that the actual gun used in the shooting was never found. In addition, they claimed that Melody could not have moved a 300-pound man alone, considering her size and age. The problem with their DNA claim is that it wasn't just general touch DNA, it was specifically on the shifter and hydraulic pump controls, parts of the equipment required to lift, move, and dump heavy loads, such as a 300-pound man. On November 4th, she was found guilty on all charges, and a month later, on December 5th, she was sentenced to life in prison, plus 5 years with eligibility for parole after 30 years.
Jury have returned a verdict guilty to all counts. Count 1, the malice murder, being the primary charge. Count 2 would be vacated as a matter of law based upon the conviction in count 1. Count 3, aggravated assault, would merge into the malice murder. The jury's made a determination that Ms. Farris was responsible for her husband's death, and she was found guilty of all charges. I don't have much latitude in sentencing. The legislature has spoken, and the penalty for murder is life. I don't believe this is the case that justifies a life without parole sentence, so I'm going to sentence to life with parole, or life with the possibility of parole. I don't have any control over parole. That's up to the parole board under the current guidelines and sentencing structure with them. A life sentence is a minimum 30 years before you would be considered for parole at this point.
During her sentencing, she caused a dramatic scene in the courtroom.
John Luke says that I'm the most stoic person he's ever met. My response was, you never know how strong you are until that's your only choice. So before it said that the only reason I'm telling you this is because I got a guilty verdict. It's not. If it had come back as not guilty, I would have still been begging for justice, for help getting the right person convicted. As soon as I walked out of the courtroom, I promise you I would have done that. Chris, Emily, Amanda, Ella, Addison, Olivia, Jack, and James, I am doing this for you. Gary is gone, and trust me when I say that he is in a better place, because this has been the worst nightmare. It's been hell on earth. Knowing that your own son did this, and it's only been by the grace of God that I have survived this last 6 years and 5 months. If I could, I would gladly trade places with Gary. Judge Cannon, I am begging you for help. Please do this for Gary and my family. I have missed years with the people that I love dearly. Help me restore my family. Be the person in Cherokee County that it is their task. I do not want to wait years for justice, years that I may not have. I know this is something
that you may never have seen before. And I plead with you to roll this verdict out. Help me get justice for the correct person. As bad as it sounds, I want to be there to watch him chained and shackled and brought to justice. I plead with you. This is something that I will never recover from. I don't know that my family will ever recover from. Please help me. I'm begging you to restore my faith in the judicial system. I'm begging you, not for me, but for Gary and my children, and my grandchildren.
Inside a parked car in downtown Carrollton, Georgia, on June 23, 2022, 18-year-old Anna Lynn Jones sat with friends, unaware that a single gunshot was about to end her life. Anna was born on November 30, 2003, to Carl and Jessica Jones, and in 2022, graduated from Mount Zion High School. That summer, she spent a lot of time with friends while preparing for her first year as a nursing student at the University of West Georgia, and the night of June 23rd was no different. That night, she and friends were hanging out in their car in the parking lot of Leopold's Pizza. She wasn't able to get in because of the bar's 21 and up age requirement. As she sat in the passenger seat of her friend's car, an extremely intoxicated college professor, 49-year-old Richard Sigmund, was involved in an altercation with another man. Apparently, Sigmund was the instigator, and when security approached him, they were surprised to see him with a gun and immediately told him to leave. After being removed, he walked into the parking deck at the nearby courthouse, where Anna was sitting with her friends, and randomly fired one shot into their vehicle. Anna's friends desperately tried to save her life by immediately driving her to Tanner Medical Center, but sadly, shortly after arriving, she was pronounced dead. Investigators quickly got to work on tracking down the shooter and, within hours, had identified Sigmund. He was arrested the same night at his apartment in Carrollton and charged with murder, aggravated assault, and gun possession. Within a year, the case came to a close when Sigmund pleaded guilty to murder and received life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years. While he apologized for what happened, he largely blamed alcohol and drugs for his actions that night. Anna's family has since sued both Sigmund and the bar for over-serving him. At this time, that case is still pending. January 20th, 2001 was supposed to be Tara Louise Baker's 24th birthday celebration, but instead, firefighters were breaking down her door the day before to find a crime scene meant to be destroyed by the fire. Inside was the body of Tara, who had been brutally killed roughly 12 hours earlier. But who was responsible? Was it someone she knew or a monster hiding in plain sight? While it took 25 years to solve, the case finally came to a close in early 2026. Tara Louise Baker was born on January 20, 1977 in East Point, Georgia, to Lindsay and Virginia Baker. She graduated from Lovejoy High School in 1995 and earned degrees in political science and paralegal studies from Georgia College in 1998. Friends described her as a compassionate and driven individual who always rooted for the underdog and always refused to let anyone feel excluded. Before moving to Athens, Tara worked at a law firm in Jonesboro, Georgia. She later took a paralegal job at a real estate law firm while preparing for law school. After building impressive credentials, she started her first year at the University of Georgia School of Law. The night before Tara's murder, on January 18th, she studied at the UGA Law School Library and was last seen around 7:30 p.m. At 9:46 p.m., she called a friend to check that they'd gotten home and said she was planning to leave the library at 10 p.m. Once inside her apartment on Fawn Drive, she was ambushed by an unknown individual. The suspect sexually assaulted, beat, and strangled her to death with a printer cord. She fought back hard, but during the struggle, she was stabbed in the neck with a knife that was later found under her body. In an attempt to destroy evidence, the suspect then took a blanket, set it on fire using Tara's stove, then placed it in her bedroom before locking the door and fleeing the scene. While there were no signs of forced entry at the front door, they did find a window screen that had been tampered with. At the time, the suspect couldn't be identified. Then, in April 2024, with advancements in DNA analysis, a DNA profile was created and uploaded to CODIS, where it matched Edric Faust, a well-known figure to local law enforcement with a lengthy criminal record. One of the crimes on his record took place less than 1 month after Tara's murder, when Faust was arrested for stabbing a man in the neck. For that crime, he was found guilty and sentenced to 2 years. His rap sheet also included convictions for robbery, battery, public indecency, and drug distribution. After identifying him through DNA, he was arrested and charged with malice murder and felony murder, sexual assault, aggravated sodomy, burglary, first-degree arson, possession of a knife during the commission of a crime, and tampering with evidence. On February 17, 2026, he was found guilty on all 12 counts.
With regard to count 1, life. Counts 2 through 5 are what we call in the legal world vacated. That means no sentence, and that is imposed as a matter of law. Those are the felony murder counts. Count 6, which is the burglary charge. 20 years with regard to count 7, which is the first aggravated sodomy charge. 30 years. Count 8 charge is life. With regard to count 9, the court agrees that count 9 does merge with count 1 as a matter of law, and that's the aggravated assault charge. With regard to count 10, which is the other aggravated sodomy charge, the court imposes 30 years in confinement. That is consecutive to count 1 and 7. That is also concurrent with count 8. Count 11, which is the arson and the first-degree charge, the court imposes 20 years of confinement consecutive to count 6. And count 12, which is possession of a knife during the commission of a felony, the court imposes 5 years in confinement. That is consecutive to count 11.
During sentencing, Tara's mother, Virginia Baker, had her son-in-law read her statement aloud.
January 19, 2001 was the collision of pure good and incomprehensible evil. Over these 25 years, the truth has emerged slowly, each new piece more terrible than the last. The question that never leaves me is why? I have asked God this question thousands of times. I still have no complete answer, and the pain remains. As a mother, I cannot bear the image of Tara dying alone, frightened, calling for help that never came. Night after night, I dream of carrying her burned and broken body, walking endless roads trying desperately to find someone who could help, someone who could bring her back. I have begged God to trade my life for hers. She is gone. The emptiness she left is vast and unending. Tara's beautiful soul is now safe with our Lord. We all thank him for the legacy of light that Tara left behind. Tara was and always will be deeply loved. Such a beautiful life, so full of promise. Thank you for your time.